The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, welcome. This meeting of the Board of Adjustment is called to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Yvonne Fry.
Here.
Robert Anders.
Present.
David Miller.
Present.
Judy Vogel. Judy Vogel.
Judy, can you unmute yourself? We see you're on the line. Keep moving that.
Betty Goodwine. Betty Goodwine. Ms. Goodwine, if you're on the line, can you please unmute yourself?
Ms. Vogel or Ms. Goodwine, could either one of y'all respond? We do see that you're on the line, but we need a voice count for our attendance, please. Can y'all text them and see if they can hear us? It's for the clerk. Okay. Okay, well, we do have a quorum with 3. Okay, if we can get them where they can hear this, that'd be great. For everybody that is on the line, if you would mute your phones until you need to speak. And again, Ms. Vogel or Ms. Goodwine, if you're able to let us know that you are here and able to participate today, we would like to have your participation. Our first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the Board of Adjustment meeting held on June 23rd, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Please remember to state your name and the motion when you speak.
This is David. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Mr. Miller, thank you for your motion. Is there a second?
This is Rob Anders. I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, we'll vote by roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Yvonne Fry.
Yes, aye.
Robert Anders.
Aye.
David Miller.
Aye.
Judy Vogel. Betty Goodwine.
The minutes for the June 23rd, 2020 are approved with a vote of 3 in favor and 2 not voting. The next order of business is public comments. Public comments for this meeting are accepted by electronic submission or mail to the clerk, and any public comments received are disseminated to the Board of Adjustment electronically prior to the start of the meeting for review and inclusion into the meeting's official record. The next order of business is the swearing in of staff and speakers.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
I do.
Perfect, thank you. The next order of business is new business. We have a quasi judicial hearing, case BOA 2020-03. City staff, please state your name and address and that you've been sworn in, and you may proceed to present the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Baker, Senior Planner with Planning and Zoning, 302 West Reynolds Street, and I've been sworn in. Madam Clerk, could you please start the PowerPoint presentation? The first request before you today is BOA 2020-03, which is the Walden Woods Unit 6B driveway spacing variance. Next slide, please. The site is located at the northwest corner of East Alexander Street and Jim Johnson Road. It's located within the Walden Woods Industrial Plan Development District and within the Residential 12 and Natural Preservation Future Land Use categories. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting a variance from two sections of the code. The first section is 102-1422-2, and the request is for a minimum driveway spacing requirement of 25 feet, which is a variance of 35 feet for lots that reside on cul-de-sacs, and a minimum driveway spacing of 32 feet, which is a variance of 28 feet for other lots when opposing driveways are adjacent to the same lot line. The second request is to section 102-1422-5, and that request is for a minimum driveway spacing from intersections of 43 feet, which is a variance of 7 feet. Next slide, please. This particular subdivision is approved for 149 single-family lots. In 2014, Section 102-1422-2 was added to the Plant City Code of Ordinances to require all residential subdivision driveways to be spaced 60 feet apart from center line to center line. This requirement makes it difficult for subdivisions to provide required infrastructure while offering a variety of housing types and layouts. And it's important to note that the engineering department is currently reviewing this portion of the code and plans to reduce this requirement in the near future. Next slide, please. This graphic is an overall view of the subdivision showing the lot layout. You'll see that there's only one area that will actually utilize the reduction in driveway spacing on cul-de-sacs. Next slide, please. And I've included these two graphics just to give you a visual representation of the request. So on the left graphic, you'll see the spacing of the two driveways that are located on opposite sides of the house, but that hug the same lot line. That shows the 32 feet spacing there. And then the section 102-1422-5 is pertaining to the spacing from the right-of-way. So you'll see that measurement there of 43 feet. And then the other graphic is showing the cul-de-sacs and how, you know, the design around those cul-de-sacs makes it difficult to space those driveways. Next slide, please. It's staff's opinion that the applicant did submit substantial evidence for the 6 review criteria in support of a variance from section 102-1422-2 and section 102-1422-5 regarding driveway spacing. Staff recommends that the Board of Adjustment approve the variance request to sections 102-1422-2 and 5 for a reduction in the minimum driveway spacing requirement. I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Baker. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Baker?
This is Rob Anders. My question is, I'm just curious what the zoning is on this.
So this is a plan development. This is part of the Walden Woods Industrial Plan Development District. So the minimum lot size within this PD is 45 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Baker? I also want to circle back around, Ms. Vogel or Ms. Goodwine, we still show that you're on the line and want you to be able to participate today. Are either of you able to hear us and respond?
I can respond now. This is Mrs. Goodwine.
Wonderful. So good to hear your voice. Thank you for being with us today. What about Ms. Vogel? Oh, we'll hope that she can connect here. I do have a question for Ms. Baker as well. And this is around safety with emergency vehicles and garbage pickup and so on. Has this been evaluated from their perspective for this application?
Yes, ma'am. Anytime we have any type of application for the Board of Adjustment, we circulate it with internal departments, and they're given the opportunity to make comments. And neither fire nor police had objections to the request.
For that, I appreciate your thoroughness. Any other questions for staff before we proceed from our board? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing. In the notice for this hearing, the public was advised to contact the clerk at least 48 hours prior to this public hearing should anyone wish to speak. Madam Clerk, did anyone contact your office to speak at this public hearing?
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Sean Cashin and Mr. Joe Gattuso representing the applicant available. Mr. Cashin and Mr. Gattuso will be available for questions. No other persons have requested to be heard for this public hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Cashin, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for joining us today. Would you like to address the board? If so, please state your name, address, and whether you've been sworn in.
Sean Cashin, 13825 ICOP Boulevard, Clearwater, Florida, 33760, and I have been sworn in.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. What I want to start out with is just, and we had put this in our narrative, and their narrative was quite lengthy, but the one point I just want to, and I think this is the point that kind of is the crux of the matter. As Robin had stated, the minimum lot size is 45 feet. We actually have 111 45-foot wide lots and 38 50-foot wide lots. So the worst case scenario, or most extreme case, if you will, would be two 45-foot wide lots side by side. And in the example that I laid out in the narrative was if you had two 45-foot wide lots side by side, and let's say the lot on the left-hand side had a left-hand garage. Yeah, and it's tough to do by phone because it's you have to visualize in your head what I'm talking about, but hopefully I'll get the point through. So the lot on the left has a left-hand garage, which is on the left-hand side of the lot. The lot on the other side, the right-hand lot, would have its garage on the right-hand side. So in this case, with the two 45-foot wide lots, you would have garages and or driveways at the far end. And as you go through the geometry of having those lots, you have a 8-foot driveway setback, and then you have another 8-foot setback to the center line of what would be a 16-foot wide driveway. I know this is going to be difficult because I'm a visual person, and without it, well, it's going to be difficult, but when you do that, you would have with the two 45-foot wide lots and the garages at the extreme ends of both, you still would not meet that 60-foot driveway spacing. You would have a 58-foot wide driveway spacing with those two 45-foot wide lots. Now, although that's close to 60, you would have to repeat that pattern all the way throughout the development, which you just cannot do. You can't have every opposing lot have a driveway at the extreme end because it's just geometrically impossible. So again, I just wanted to state that even we can't even meet the minimum criteria of a 60-foot wide with any of the 45-foot wide lots, and about 75% of the lots are the 45-foot wide lot variety. So that's really why we are asking for this Board of Adjustment variance.
Okay. Can you, one more time, summarize succinctly how many lots are affected by this, out of how many?
I would say, that the potential is you could have every lot affected by this. So the 149 lots, potentially you could have every one of the 149 lots affected.
Okay.
And of course, we don't have lot layout plans for every lot, so it's tough to make that determination now at this point. But theoretically, every lot would need this variance.
Okay. Is there anything else in your presentation at this time?
At this time, no.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Cashin? Anyone?
No,
Okay.
not here.
Was that you did or did not?
Oh, I said no.
Okay, thank you. We have Mr. Gattuso with us today. Are you on the line?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Do you wish to address the board? And if so, would you please state your name, address, and whether you've been sworn?
I have nothing further to say. Everything's been said.
Thank you. As mentioned before, in order to speak at today's meeting, you must have registered with the city clerk 48 hours prior to this meeting. Since there were no other registrants, this hearing is closed. Is there any board member that wishes to discuss the matter further? Is there any board member that would like to make a motion?
This is Rob Anders. I'll move for approval.
We had two people speaking over each other. Mr. Anders, would you go first?
This is Rob Anders. I move for approval.
Okay, and I believe who was the other one speaking? I couldn't make out the voice.
This is Judy Vogel. I'd like to second.
Wonderful. We're glad you're here. Thank you. So we have a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Anders and a second by Ms. Vogel for approval. Is there any further discussion? Okay, there being no discussion, we'll vote by roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Fry,
Aye.
Robert Anders,
Aye.
David Miller,
Aye.
Judy Vogel,
Aye.
Betty Goodwine, Betty Goodwine,
Goodwine, are you on mute? Are you able to speak to this vote? Wonderful. Thank you. We have the motion passes 5-0. Thank you for staff and for the applicant for joining us today, and good luck with your project. We have up next BOA case 2020-04. City staff, please state your name and address that you've been sworn in, and you may proceed to present this second case.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. Robin Baker, Senior Planner with Planning and Zoning, 302 West Reynolds Street. Madam Clerk, could you please start the PowerPoint presentation? The next request before you, BOA 2020-04, is for the Wilder Meadows subdivision driveway spacing variance. Next slide, please. The site is located at 505 North Wilder Road, which is on the east side of North Wilder, just north of East Cherry Street, across the street from our soccer fields and our beautiful Strawberry Water Tower. The zoning is residential 1. Future land use designation is residential 4. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting a variance to section 102-1422-2 for a minimum driveway spacing requirement of 28 feet, which is a variance of 32 feet, for lots that reside on cul-de-sacs, and for a minimum driveway spacing requirement of 40 feet a variance of 20 feet for other lots when opposing driveways are adjacent to the same lot line. Next slide, please. The Wilder Meadows subdivision was approved last night for 24 single-family lots. And as stated before, in 2014, this particular section of the code was added to the Plant City Code of Ordinances to require all residential subdivision driveways to be spaced 60 feet apart from center line to center line, which makes it difficult for subdivisions to provide required infrastructure and offer a variety of housing types and layouts. The engineering department is looking into this requirement and plans to reduce it in the near future. Next slide, please. This is an overall view of the Wilder Meadows subdivision. Next slide, please. And again, this is just a graphic to help you visually see how the spacing is from center line to center line. Next slide, please. It's staff's opinion that the applicant did submit substantial evidence for the 6 review criteria in support of a variance from section 102.1422.2 regarding driveway spacing, and staff recommends that the Board of Adjustment approve the variance request for a reduction in the minimum driveway spacing requirement. I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. I do have an initial question just for some reference and context. You had made note, and we've talked about this before, I believe, of some proposed changes coming to these ordinances. Can you speak to that, and is this in line with what we're contemplating?
Yes. I believe the goal at this point with the engineering department is to actually just remove this actual requirement from the language. There's already a statement that comes in just before this section that requires the driveways to be spaced 8 feet from the property line. And I believe that that's what the engineering department is just going to go with, is that it has to at least be 8 feet from the property line, and that will be the only requirement for the driveway. Okay,
thank you. Does other board members have any further questions for Ms. Baker?
This is Rob Anders. I may have missed it in the presentation. Again, same question I had before. What's the zoning on this property?
This property is located in the R1 zoning category, which requires 60-foot wide lots.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Judy.
Yes, Ms. Vogel?
Yes, Judy Vogel. I understand that now driveways can go all the way to the property line. Am I correct?
No, ma'am. We still have the requirement in the code that requires the driveway to be spaced 8 feet from the property line.
Is that in R1 or is that?
That's just in subdivisions in general.
Pardon me?
That's the requirement of the subdivision portion of the code, so it's just subdivisions in general.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you, Ms. Vogel. Any other questions from the board for Ms. Baker? Hearing none. This is a public hearing. In the notice for this hearing, the public was advised to contact the clerk at least 48 hours prior to this public hearing should anyone wish to speak. Madam Clerk, did anyone contact your office to speak at this public hearing?
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Sean Cashin and Mr. Joe Gattuso representing the applicant available. Mr. Cashin and Mr. Gattuso will be available for questions. We also have Mr. Keith Dilks registered to speak after the applicant's presentation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Cashin, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Would you like to address the board? If so, please again state your name, address, and whether you've been sworn.
Sean Cashin, 13825 ICOP Boulevard, Clearwater, Florida, and I have been sworn. For this particular project, we have a mixture of 60-foot wide lots, 64.5-foot wide lots, and 65-foot wide lots. The zoning minimum lot width is 60 feet. We have a mixture, and most of the lots are over 60 feet, although we do have 5 or 6 60-foot wide lots. And so, and I won't go through at length the geometry. If you have, but if you do have two 60-foot wide lots adjacent to each other, and you have the driveways opposite ends of these two adjoining lots, you would meet the spacing criteria. And in fact, the driveways would be 78 feet apart, center line to center line. But where you run into difficulty is, again, trying to repeat that pattern, and you can't do it everywhere. And the difficulty with this project in meeting the code is really specifically around the cul-de-sac, where you have the lot widths narrow. These are where you have your pie-shaped lots, and they narrow to a certain extent around the cul-de-sac. And meeting that 60-foot criteria becomes very difficult around the cul-de-sac. And if I might add, also, if when lot plans are being prepared for various residents, you may have a case, and oftentimes you do, where the person on one lot wants a right-hand garage, and their neighbor to the right of them wants the left-hand garage. And it could be because that's just the building footprint that they want. That's the one that catches their eye. And in the case of that, that's where you would need to have your minimum spacing of 32 feet from driveway to driveway. So having a variance to this code, I believe, does give flexibility in having those different type of footprints next to each other. And it adds to the variety of different footprints and building layouts that you can have on a development as well. So primarily, again, or the difficulty would be around the cul-de-sacs and on those lots where you have a right-hand garage type layout next to a left-hand garage. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Cashin. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Cashin? Hearing none, I believe Mr. Gattuso is still on the line. Did you want to address the board as well on this one?
I do not, as everything has been addressed by the civil engineer of record, and Robin did a great job. So I have nothing further to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more time, I wanted to check and make sure the board, if there was any questions for the applicant.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
I was just asking one more time to make sure if there was any questions from the board for the applicant. And I hear none. So we'll move forward. Mr. Dilks, are you on the line?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am.
If you'd like to address, please state your name, address, and whether you've been sworn, and then you can proceed with your comments.
I have been sworn. My name is Keith Dilks, 2807 Wilder Park Drive. I have no initial concerns with the driveways. I already see how it's draining. Some very creative engineering went into this. I kind of applaud Joe on his success. Although I noticed in this plan that we are then going here in Wilder Park, we're going to live by different rules by our zoning and by our permitting than will this development here in Wilder Meadows. That is a concern of mine. We literally are living by different rules. I will put that back on the city, let you guys decide how that filters out. My other concern is the speed bump that needs to go in between Wilder Meadows or Wilder Bend Place and Wilder Park. It is a very much needed concern. I've only started documenting those in crazy violation as of August 15th, and it's oddly enough our very own municipalities that can't abide by the rules. 3/13, August 15th, our own police department. August 18th, our site manager that's working on this project at 1:10 p.m. And today at 1:05, our, again, very own municipalities. I've counted them so many times because under COVID, I work at home. I have been outside. I noticed all of this. I wish that you could see what I see on video. But that is a very serious concern that it needs to be addressed as soon as possible. There should be and needs to be a dividing speed bump in between these two neighborhoods. Less concerned about the driveways. I already notice that water gets filtered towards I-4, which filters back into the creek on the other side. That'll be the sixth problem in 3 years. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oaks, for joining us today and for your comments. I will let you know that we are bound by the applications and the contents there of what we're dealing with today. And if you've got some other things of considerations for the city, you can contact directly on the speed bumps and anything else of that nature. So, but thank you again for joining us today. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Dilks? Thank you. There being other registrants, this hearing is closed. Is there any board member that wishes to discuss the matter or to make a motion?
This is Judy Vogel. I make a motion that we approve the variance as requested.
Thank you, Ms. Vogel. Do we have a second?
David Miller, I'll second.
Betty
that motion.
Goodwin, second.
We had Mr. Miller first on the second. So we have a motion by Ms. Vogel and a second by Mr. Miller for approval. Is there any further discussion? There being no discussion, we'll vote by roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Yvonne Fry,
Aye.
Robert Anders,
Aye.
David Miller,
Aye.
Judy Vogel,
Aye.
Betty Goodwin.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The application passes 5-0. The next order of business is other business and announcements. Thank you again to our applicants and to Citizen for joining us today. Is there any other business to come before the board today? No? I would like to thank the rest of our board. I miss getting to see y'all, but appreciate your work, and want to also thank the clerk and our city staff, Ms. Baker, for all of their work in us being able to process on these applications. But I do miss getting to see y'all. I hope everyone is well. If there's no other business, our meeting is adjourned at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.